The default WooCommerce product page design is kind of boring. It has a lot of different features and functionality, but the design just isn't that great. It can definitely be better, like this, or even this. I design a lot of e-commerce websites, so I deal with this WooCommerce product page a lot. I've made a lot of videos on WooCommerce, so if you're subscribed to the channel, you've probably already watched those and know my thoughts on this platform. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with WooCommerce. Simply put, I think that WooCommerce is a great tool for e-commerce websites, but if they want people to actually use it, they need better documentation and definitely need to make it more user-friendly. I've been making websites for a long time and I still have to Google things related to WooCommerce a lot. But over the years, I've found some tools that make designing a WooCommerce site a lot easier. If you use these two tools, I really do believe that you can take your WooCommerce site to the next level. The tools that I'm talking about are Elementor Pro and Advanced Custom Fields. These are both plugins for WordPress. With these tools, you can do pretty much whatever you want on your WooCommerce site, and you don't need a degree to figure out how to do it. So today, I'm going to take this boring WooCommerce product page design and turn it into something that looks a lot more professional and will be a lot more effective in the long run. Let's get started. Before I start designing anything really, I like to take a look at some inspiration. What are some of the big online retailers doing with their product pages? This demo that I'm working on is for a skincare company, so let's take a look at some online retailers that sell skincare products. First up, we have Ulta, one of my personal favorites. This page feels very organized. Even though there's a lot of information, I don't feel like it's overwhelming. And I think that's really important. I like how they show the star rating and how when you click on it, it jumps down to all of the reviews. This is something that WooCommerce does have included, but I don't really like the design of it. I think that we can improve it by maybe doing something like this. I also like these toggles. This is really helping to keep the information organized on the page. Yes, there's a lot of information, but it really doesn't feel overwhelming because they kind of hide it with these toggles. Next up, we have Sephora. This is a similar look to Ulta, but I think that this page looks a little more cluttered. The Ulta site feels a bit cleaner to me, and I think that's because Sephora kind of puts stuff in boxes. It's not a bad design by any means, I just personally prefer Ulta's more. I like this highlight section with different icons. This is a great way to get important information across quickly. I think that this is something I could easily add to my product page using Elementor Pro. Last up, we have The Ordinary. Their product gallery is laid out differently than Ulta or Sephora's, but I kind of like it. Something like this works if you don't have a ton of product images or videos. If they had more than 4 images on this gallery, it would look like a complete mess. But since they don't have as many images as some of the other brands, I think that this can work really well. Like Sephora, they use icons to highlight specific information, but they also have this area that highlights their shipping policy and links to their FAQs and returns policy. I think that this is a really good feature to include on a product page because this is stuff that people want to know. Some things that I like about all of these different pages are their review section. A lot of people make purchases online based solely off the reviews, so I think it's really important to include this section. Now, WooCommerce has a reviews tab in their default product page design, but I really hate that it's a tab linked to the description. I think that we could separate this out and make it look a lot better. I also like the way that they handle upsells. Again, this is something that WooCommerce does, but you can't really change the text or the way things are laid out by default. Now that I've evaluated a few different websites, let's talk about some things that I want to include on my product page design. Of course, depending on the type of product that you're selling, some of these things will work really well for you while others won't. But I think it's always a good idea to look at big retailers to see what they're doing, because they have a lot of research and development going into these product pages, and they kind of know what they're doing because they're big retailers. So it's always good to take a look and see what you can apply to your own site. For my page, I think this is what I want to do. I like how WooCommerce includes the reviews tab, but I want to create something that looks a little bit different and more polished. I really hate how the reviews is in the same tab by default as the product description. I don't think it really makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to separate that out, which can be done using Elementor. I also want to change the language and the look of this upsells area because I think that this can also be a lot better. I also want to add icons that highlight different important things about my product. I liked how Sephora and The Ordinary did this on their pages. I also think that including some toggles with information about how to use the product or the ingredients that are in it could be very helpful as well. So I'm going to include those using ACF. Lastly, I'm going to highlight my shipping and returns policy, kind of like how The Ordinary did it on their product page. We'll start by creating a single product template in Elementor Pro. From here, I can add Elementor widgets to design and lay out this page. If you're familiar with Elementor Pro, you'll recognize these, as well as several widgets for WooCommerce. I'm not going to get too in-depth on how to use Elementor Pro in this video, but if you're curious, check out our Elementor Pro playlist where we cover a lot of different things. I've already began designing my page using some of the Elementor widgets available. Now, I mentioned before that by default, the product description and reviews are linked together in a tab system, which honestly, I think is kind of stupid. In Elementor, they call this widget Product Data Tabs. And if I drag that over, you can see that it's basically the same layout as what is by default. So that's not really going to work for us. But we have a workaround. Reviews are actually shown in WordPress as comments, meaning that I can use a comments widget in my layout to display and submit reviews on my page. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's get rid of this, and then we'll go up to our Elementor widgets and type in comments. So I'm just going to put in post comments down here. And you can see here that we have our reviews showing up. So this is a really good workaround. This is something that I found out a few months ago when I was working on a client project and we wanted to separate out that description and reviews. Definitely recommend doing this if you're looking to do that as well on your product page. This is a really good workaround for that. And if you were wondering, yes, when you click this customer reviews link, it does jump down to this section, even though it is a comment widget. So it's working exactly how I would want it to work. Now let's talk about the product description. So we have our reviews here, but let's say that we wanted to also add a long description above the reviews, kind of like how they did on the sites that I use as my inspiration. Well, in order to do that, we would need to drag over the product content widget in Elementor. So if we drag that over, you can see that we have our long description for our product in here. While I have this template open, let's talk about upsells. If I drag over the Elementor upsells widget, it's going to look the same as what it would look by default in WooCommerce. But with Elementor, we get a lot of options for customization. So I can change the fonts, the colors, the button styles, and make this look a lot better. One thing that I really like is that you have the ability to change this. So if we click on our widget and then go to the Style tab, if we scroll down to where it says Heading, it's it's a little bit down the page, we can have this turned off. Now from here, all I have to do to bring it back is drag over another heading widget. So that gives us the option to customize the text on the page and make it more personal depending on the product that we are selling. So I really like this option. It's something that I use pretty often when I'm creating product page templates. So what I'm going to do now is just go back to my widget, and then we'll drag over a heading, and then we can change it to whatever we want. So I'm going to spend a few minutes styling this off camera, and I'll be right back. The next thing that I want to add is my highlight area that talks about different things regarding my product and includes some icons. I think that this is a really nice feature to add to product pages because it lets people know quickly about the type of products that you offer. So I'm just going to add a brand new section. I'm going to make it 3 columns because I'm going to have 3 icons that I want to add. And I'm just going to start adding an icon widget. You can add any widget that's available in Elementor to your product template. You're not restricted in any way, so take advantage of all that it has to offer. Just remember that whatever you put on your product template will show up on every product page. So you have to make sure that the information that you're putting on this template applies to all of your products. So I've already uploaded a few SVGs to my media library, and I'm just going to select those and insert them where the icon is. And then I'm just going to add some information to this area. And of course I want to style this to make it look a lot better. So I'll do that off camera and be right back. Alright, so I went ahead and I added my new highlight area. Now I have this page opened up in preview, and I think it's looking pretty good. It looks a lot better, in my opinion, than what the default page looked like. We have our review separated out. You will notice that I did remove the description area because I have that up here and I don't have a long description for this, so didn't really think it was needed. But I'm really liking the way that this is looking. The next thing that I want to do is add toggles. I want to add those underneath this add to cart area so that we can just get some more information about the product. Now in order to do that, I'm going to have to use advanced custom fields. Now I'm not going to lie, when I first started out doing WordPress websites, advanced custom fields kind of intimidated me because that was what all of the really good developers were using, and I didn't consider myself a developer. I considered myself more of a designer. So I was really intimidated by this at first, but I promise you that it's not that hard to learn. And if you use it in conjunction with Elementor Pro, it actually makes things a lot easier. So I promise you that it's not as hard as it looks. Once you understand where everything is and how to do it, it actually becomes kind of fun. So I installed the plugin on the site, and then I went to this custom fields tab, and that will take you here. So the first thing that you want to do is add a field group. You'll give that field group a title, so I'm just going to call this products. You can call it whatever you want. And then the second thing that you're going to do is create your actual field. So what this is going to do is create a custom field in your WooCommerce product page. So I'll show you that a little bit later once we create the field, but it's going to allow you to add information that wouldn't be there by default. So it's pretty cool. So from here, under field type, you can select the type of field that you want. I'm going to select the WYSIWYG editor because we're just going to be adding some text. And then here you'll put in your field label. So I'm going to put for my first one, ingredients. And then if you hit tab, the field name will automatically populate for you. Under default value, you can put in some information regarding what this field is about. So I'll just put in ingredients list. Now if we click on this validation tab, we can select whether or not this field is required or not. I'm going to leave that checked off because I don't necessarily want to make my custom field required. If you did, you would just toggle that on. Under presentation, we can put in instructions for authors. So instructions for when they submit the data. So you can put something like, please add ingredients here, whatever you want it to say. There's also some different options for the tabs, the toolbar, and if you want to include a media upload button. I actually don't want to include that. I don't want people to be able to upload images, so I'm going to check that off. And there's a couple other options for just kind of the look on the page itself. You don't have to worry about this if you don't want to, but they're there if you need them. And then the conditional logic, you can also play around with that as well. For this, you don't really need to worry about that because this is something that I do want to include on every product. But if you did have a situation where it wasn't going to be on every product, then you would play around with those settings. I'm not going to get too deep into how all of this works because we can really go down a rabbit hole here, but I basically want to show you how to add these fields to your product page and then add them to Elementor because it all works together really well. Now we need to go under settings and talk about the location rules. So the rules right now say show this field group if the post type is equal to post. So that's not exactly what we want. We actually want to change this to say product because we want this to show on the product pages, not on posts, because we're not dealing with blogs, we're dealing with the products. So then we'll hit save changes and let me show you what happens. We go under our products. Let's just go under this face scrub product. You can see here that we now have this editor for ingredients. So from here, I can put in my ingredients list in this editor. So I can put in whatever my ingredients are for the product, hit save, and then it will show up on the product template once I add it in Elementor. So I'm going to go ahead and put in some ingredients and then I'll show you the next step. I went ahead and added some ingredients to my products and now I'm back on my single product template in Elementor Pro. In order to get this to display, I need to add a widget to this product template. I'm going to add a toggle. So I'm going to go over here, search toggle, and then drag it over under this add to cart button. Now by default, this is the toggle that you're familiar with seeing if you've ever used Elementor. I'm going to get rid of this second toggle and then I'm going to go to toggle 1. I'm going to call this ingredients, but of course you can call it whatever you want. Now, by default, they just put in some dummy text. What's really cool about this, though, is that we can use the dynamic area to pull in our ACF field that we just created. So if we click on dynamic tags and scroll down to the bottom to ACF, we'll click on ACF field, and then we go to key, and then we hit ingredients. Now it's showing the ingredients that I added to my product. So this is really, really useful. One of the things that I love about Elementor Pro is that they have all of these dynamic tags for different widgets. So you can pull in ACF fields wherever you want and make them look nice and have it styled to your theme and your website. Now, if we wanted to add more ACF fields, we would just have to repeat that process of adding the field in the field group, but it's actually pretty easy, right? It's not as intimidating as I originally thought. Once I got the hang of it, I actually thought it was pretty cool and kind of fun. The last thing that I want to add to this page is a note about my free shipping and a link to my returns policy, kind of like how The Ordinary did it. Now for this, we're going to use the same method that we've been using throughout this tutorial, is just dragging over some Elementor widgets, styling them, and adding the appropriate text. So in order to achieve this, I'm just going to drag over a text editor widget and I'm going to place that underneath my description. From here, I just have to edit the text and make sure I have a link to my returns policy. As always, we want to make sure that anything that we're putting on our product page applies to all of our products. So I'm going to work on that and I'll be right back. I've added a bunch of different elements to this page and I'm really happy with how it's looking. By using Elementor and ACF, we can really add a lot of custom elements and design these pages to be a lot more effective and a lot more professional looking. It isn't too hard to achieve the look that you want using these tools. WooCommerce can be a pretty difficult platform to understand, but using Elementor and advanced custom fields definitely makes it a lot easier. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. That's it for today's video. I hope that you found it helpful and got some ideas on how to improve your own WooCommerce product pages. By using Elementor Pro and advanced custom fields, you can really do a lot to spruce these pages up and make them look more professional. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye!